the chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita. And this is a description or narration of what happens to the whole category of people that we refer to as having Ashuri Shampat. And we have clarified and we had a long discussion on it in last couple of sessions that this is not reference to any demons or anything, but it's a certain reference to a discussion on certain qualities which can also manifest in human beings. The same human beings can have Daivi Sampat, certain privileges and certain endowments of spiritual qualities, and can have negative endowments of certain demonic qualities, what we refer to as Asuri Sampat or Rakshasi Sampat. The word Asura is kind of more or less focused on the Raga aspect, attachment. And the Rakshas aspect is sort of associated with the Dvesha aspect, aversion, hatred, violence. And therefore, in the verse number 12, having mentioned that these guys who are Dambha Mana Madan Mitaha, and therefore they are doing all kinds of inauspicious activities. And they have whole lot of thoughts, innumerable thoughts, because they have innumerable desires, and to fulfill them, they would be running after them. And what sort of people are there? Kamo Pabhoga Paramaha. For them, the ultimate goal of their life is to sort of satisfy their own desires they have. And then he's saying, because they have all this, they're kind of, they're kind of caught up in a net of desires of their own. Asa pasa satir vadhaha. So it's like there are different nuts which are kind of binding them. Each desire creates one bondage, and they have millions of them because they have millions of desires. Baddha kama krodha parayanaha. So they have attraction, and when your attraction is not, they're completely sort of interrelated. Krodha is nothing but a kind of frustration we experience when we don't get what we want. So it's like we have several incidents of violence when people are refused a chance to satisfy their desires. Parayanaha. Ihante, chestante, they keep looking for things, kama bhogartham, not to fulfill any high spiritual goal or any aspiration they have. They are not going to set up a big mission or charitable organization. It's quite possible that even people who are setting up these charitable organizations are asuras in disguise, and that is what he will come in the next couple of verses when we'll look at them. Anya Yenartha Sandhyana, they try to have a lot of wealth, not through rightful means, because that is part of Purushartha. Earning money isn't bad, it's not demonic. There are quite certain people sort of make fun of making money. No, making money is kind of upaya, it has instrumental value even for dharma. You can do enormous amount of good in society if you have some money and a good aspiration, a good desire. A good aspiration to help others, to set up a foundation or stuff like that. Even to do good things, you need a lot of money. So money per se isn't bad. What is bad here is mentioning in order for kama bhoga. That is what is kind of making money useless in life. It causes more bondage. Otherwise, as Sri Aurobindo says, money power is God, it's divine. Why? Because he says there is nothing good or bad about money. It's all about our perception of it, how we utilize it. So, if you have a big house, you could use it for any purpose, isn't it? So, there were few kings in India who used their wealth and power to did a lot of good things, like the king in Kerala, for example, Travancore. So he set up a women's college long before people even thought about it, could think about women literacy in Eastern India. He was already having a women's college there. He had drainage systems in Trivandrum, if you look at it. And there were a few kings who did wonderful things. Like one king in Orissa contributed the money for the library, and many other kings, they did good things for the society. But there were most of the kings, majority of them, were all about their hunting and their dance seasons and their rings and their bunch of poets which were subservient to them to write in praise of their glories. That was the normal. But then people who were also there who were trying to establish dharma through their power and wealth. But the asuras and rakshasas are not like that. They are not demons. They are people like us. And Madhusudana is kind of elaborating that in a beautiful way. Asakya upayartha vishaya. And it's quite possible. What is asa? What is craving? He's expanding that. Asakya upayartha vishaya. So there is certain object you are craving for it, but you cannot get it. So what would you do? You try to have some shortcut or any which way you will try to have it. That is the beginning of papa karma, because it's difficult for you to get it, but you want to anyway get it. It's like a politician trying to win an election through unfair means, because through fair means he may not win. So he wants to have it any which way. Anavagata upayartha vishayaha. And you want to be, you want to get a Nobel Prize in physics, but you are a very bad student of physics. How do you do it? I mean, this is something you don't even understand, but you want to have that. And that is also another. Va prarthana asaha. These kinds of things, when you don't know how to get it, you don't have good understanding of the goal you have set for yourself, and what are the pros and cons, and what are the requirements that you need to cultivate to reach there. That's one category of things. The other one is you are not having the potential or the energy or the whereabouts, the necessary resources to reach there. You have a clear understanding. Maybe you have a good understanding of how to be there, but you don't have the resources. You're looking for an angel investor. You're looking for a big guy who can put in a lot of money, right? So in either of these ways, that is called asha. Ta eva pasha. And these asas where you don't have the resources to reach there, or you don't have a good understanding to get there, that becomes a bondage, because it's something which is beyond you and you're desperately trying to reach there. Iba bandhana hetu tvada pasaha tesham. Because they put such a huge burden on you and to fulfill it through any which way, and therefore they become a bondage on you. Sati, not one, because you have millions of desires, so they have hundreds and thousands in big numbers. I mean, sati means quite a few. Samuhe vadhaha, and then it's not one or two. So the whole set of desires which you are trying to pursue, you want to have a good family, a good partner, you want to have a lot of respect in society, and then you want also a literary award, you want to pass off as a poet, and you see that a lot of people do, depending on the cultural setting. They also want to be recognized as a poet, and then you want to be recognized as a social worker, and all sorts of things at the same time. And then what do you do? Some way, and then you are bonded by, that is the bond, bondage, which is kind of you're imposing on yourself. So you're caught up in that whole net. Shreyasaha pratyevetaha tataha akrisha niyamanaha kama krodho. And then what happens is you have that strong desire, and sometimes you're not getting it. Then you're anger, and then you're angry. So both the force of attraction and aversion start working on you, and you are removed from the path of Shreya. What is good for you? What is desirable for you? We are removed from that. Shreyasya Priyasya. Now we are on the path of what is pleasing to us, what sort of fits the bill of our mind. It's not about viveka, which are manas, and then we are chasing them. Kama krodho param ayanam ashrayo yesamte kama krodha parayanaha. And that is the fundamental thing. We sort of settle for fulfilling our desires and the associated attachments and aversions. And that is our ultimate destination. Therefore, we are kama krodha parayana, this asurajan rakhyasas. And then what are the specificities? He's sort of elaborating. What would be those kama krodha? How do they manifest and why? What are the specifics? So he's just bringing in a bit of, it's a little cultural overlord which is coming into picture, because he's bringing in what he must have seen in those days. You have to understand that when Madhusudana Saraswati was writing, Bengal was under Afghan occupation. Afghan kings were ruling there. Mughals were ruling in Delhi. So he had had a hard time even in Benares. It's said that he was sort of having an identity in the Mughal court, some people say, because one of the courtiers has noted down his name in their annals of the Mughal Empire that he was one of the prominent guys there. That is what is mentioned there. We don't have very accurate knowledge, but some people acknowledge that he had access, and they did recognize him as a great poet and a philosopher. So he had a lot of respect. It is quite possible that the kind of violence which was evident during those times, during that historical period, he is, while explaining the qualities of what is Asuri Sampat or Rakshasi Sampat, perhaps is referring to some of those, powerful chieftains or dictatorial rulers at a national or at a local level. It's quite possible that few generals and stuff like that, he may be putting that into. That is my hunch. It's not. I'm not referring to any research or anything. But if you look at it, you will find some bit of it, and also sort of the mythological stories about the Asuras from Mahabharata in the Ramayana and other Puranas, where you have read about the Sumbhas and Nishambha and Mahishasuras and others. And what are these specifically is missing? Sri Vyatikara Abhilasa, Para Anishta Abhilasa Abhyam, Sti Vyatikara. It's like that companionship of beautiful woman. So you want to have company of women, so you like to capture as many women as possible. Para Anishta Abhilasa, and nobody is going to give their daughter or sister or wife. So what do? You must threaten them. You must be a very powerful guy. Sada parigrihita. So they are kind of connected with this, so obsessed with this. Iti yavat ihante kartum chestante. So they want to have that kama bhogartham. Whatever is the goal of their desires and the fulfillment of those desires, the accomplishment of those desires and the pleasures they want to have thereof, they are chasing that. Kama bhogartham, nadu dharmartham. They are doing all this cheshta, no, not for dharma, not for any good thing, but to sort of satisfy the animal self, the animal, the animal desires which are hiding, the primitive, subhuman desires which are hiding in them. They are trying to cater to them. And how do they do it? Do they do it in a very rightful way? No, anyayana paraswa haranadina. So they will snatch away wealth of others in a very unjust way, unfair way, because they don't care for any rules and regulations. They have no knowledge of what is prakriti marga, which means dharma. Shastra, whatever, Shastra vihita karma, they don't know. Nibriti, they have no knowledge thereof. What is pratisiddha karma? What one shouldn't do, they have no knowledge. Why? They are completely averse to reading Shastras, these Asuri Sampat people. They're rich in negative thinking, and therefore they don't care for any rightful conversation on what one should have or shouldn't have in life, and that's already mentioned earlier. Paraswa haranadi, paraswa is paradhana, haranadina, artha sanjayan. So they want to have a lot of money. Dhanarashim, not one or two, a lot of money. Why he's saying sanjayan? A lot of money. Others deposits, they want to snatch it away. Sanchayaniti bahuvachanena, using that plural thing, dhana prapto api tat trishna anabrittehe vishaya prapti vardhamana trusatva rupa lobha darshitaha. Why he's mentioning that they snatch away all the wealth, sanchayan, deposit, not of one or two guys, but many guys. Why? Because they were never satisfied because of the very nature they have, that accusative craving which they have. They have a million, they are planning to capture another 2 million from another middle set of 20 or 30 or 40 traders or middle farmers. It's like the dons who collect their haftas in certain parts of India. Now, he's now elaborating on what sort of plays out in their mind, what kind of thoughts they have. That is what he's mentioning in the next verse. Idamadya maya labdhamidam prapse manoratham idamastidam api me bhavishyati punardhanam idam adya maya labdham. Today I should have this. This I have got today. Okay. Am I going to sit quiet, watch cricket match? No. Idam prapse manoratham. And this is something another or my mental desires, my fads or anything, I'm going to satisfy that as well. Idam asti idam api me bhavishyati. This I have. I have this car. I'm going to have another new, which is more costly. I have one thing, I have another thing. So that craving sort of continues. The more you quench the thirst for wealth, for fulfillment of desire, it gives birth to a new desire and you run after it again. So there is no moderation. I mean, he is not somebody who is trying to temper his craving with an understanding of life is limited and therefore let me be happy with this, let me do a bit of charity work. No, none of those things. Idam asti, idam me bhavishyati. I've already got this. I've already captured the land of these three, four guys. I'm going to capture the land of more people. I have done a hostile acquisition of this company. I'm going to do that for another one or two company. You must have seen that famous, Hollywood movie, The Wall Street. You remember that sentence where he says, "Money doesn't sleep. Get up." So you can't sleep. You continue to pray for more and more things. Punardhanam. So I will have more money. Straightforward. So he's saying, "Idam dhanam adya idanim anena upayana maya labdham." So I employed this particular method to have this wealth today. I made so much of gain through this investment or whatever. Idam tad anyat manoratham, and there is some other desire, there's some other goal, another target. Manas tushtikaram, so something which will satisfy my mind. Sigram eva prakshe, and I'll also do that. I'll also get it. It's like I have set up a business and I want to buy another business, so you want to expand it. Idam pura eva sanjitam mama grihe asti. So I have so much of diamonds or gold or anything. It's already at home. But I want to have more. Idamapi bahutaram bhavishyati. And then he's saying that, yeah, so I'm agamini sambatsare punardhanam. So this year I have had all that. And the next year I'll add a couple of more millions, three, four more cars, maybe few luxury houses, and so on and so forth. Punardhanam. Evam dhanatrishna kulaha. They kind of akulaha. They're all the time thoughtful about not a good thing, but they just want to have more and more money. They're very restless. Patanti, where do they go? Patanti narake asuchau iti agrimena anvayaha. There is a verse number 16, we'll look at that. That when we continue to crave for material things and we do not understand the purpose of life, forget about the theological imagination that end of the day you're going to go to hell. You could look at it as a metaphor and think, yeah, life is going to be hell. Whether there is a real hell or not, your life is definitely not very peaceful because there is no clarity on what you want to have. I mean, a lot of people who glorify may not be necessarily very happy people. They may be very powerful, but the content of their life, the content of what they stand for, the very consciousness they have, could be actually that of a demon. It's quite possible, isn't it? So, I mean, just to give an example, it seems that there's one Indian CEO of a company called Better.com, I think fired 900 people just before Christmas in States. He's saying, I cannot afford you guys, so you go. I mean, he could have done it maybe in January, or he could have said, I'll give you half a salary. We don't have money to give. Or he just could have fired one email instead of making an announcement, calling these guys on a Zoom call and telling them you're fired. If you're part of this conference, you're gone. I mean, it was not necessary to be so blunt and cause emotional trauma. You don't know. Out of those 900, we cannot rule out the fact that there were 10 ladies who are pregnant or who have small children. They have bills to pay. And what about the trauma you have caused them? So if you look at the content of many of these very successful people, the very successful people, but actually what we are discussing here, they could be they may be having one of the symptoms that we are discussing. It's quite possible because what happens is that with craving for money, what you nurture without knowing is insensitivity towards other people. It could be also towards family members because a person gets very, very obsessed with I mean, it's like you have that, the horses have that tunnel vision. Their eyes are closed from both sides. They can't look at anything. They keep moving. And these Asuri Sampad people are like that. So, so he's saying that I have halved it, punardhanam, and then that is what the verse number 13 comes to an end. Evam lobham prapanchayat tad abhipraya kathanena eva tesham krodham prapanchayati. Now, having mentioned that raga aspect, he's now going to discuss about the dvesha aspect. Now he has discussed about the asuri sampad, and the rakshasi sampad is asuri sampad antarvukta. It's part of that because he didn't want to have another category. Because dvesha necessarily follows when we cannot fulfill our desires or cravings. Therefore, he's saying, I have already told you about the raga aspect. Now I will tell you how they get angry, how the krodha or the anger, violence manifests in their lives. असोमय हतः शत्रुः हनिष्ये चापरानपि ईश्वरोऽहं भोगी सिद्धो अहं बलवान सुखी. This guy is very, very flippant and arrogant and violent. How does he think about himself? Also, maya hataha. Do you know? I mean, I shouldn't be talking about it, but once I was traveling by train from Banaras, uh, not much. I mean, few years back, and Banaras those days it was very difficult to get a flight ticket, and connection is very difficult. So, and from Banaras, the airport is outside the city. So, if you have a train to Delhi, it's much easier to travel and sleep at night and reach there in the morning. And then there were some police officers who were traveling in that AC compartment, and they were having some conversations, and they were saying how to get a promotion. I think somebody was seeking some advice of others, and they were discussing some criminals, and he's saying what is that guy doing, and then he's saying no, he terminated these four, but he has been already terminated, and he was thinking that if I can get hold of that guy, I'll get a promotion, because they were talking about who are the criminals and how to sort of get hold of them, how to raid and get hold of them, and if I can capture one of these guys, I'll get a promotion. That's what they were talking. It was a very interesting conversation. I was acting as if I'm deep asleep, and I was just looking at their conversation. So they were talking about powerful dons in different pockets where they are placed, mid-level police officers. And one guy laughed. He said, "Oh, you're eating rasgulla, thinking about that guy. You don't remember? He was captured, and in fact, there was an ambush there with police. He attacked the police, and the police shot him dead. That happened 1 year back. That's after he's closed. He's no more around. So don't think about that plot. You are not going to get him. You can't arrest him." So all these guys, they're constantly under threat of rival gangs and under the threat of the state, because state is looking for them, but they are living a kingly life till they get killed. Okay, very miserable life. So what do they think? Asomaya hataha. Okay, that guy I have terminated. I'm a boss of this area. Hanisyecha aparanapi. Okay, another two guys who have been threatening me and they are trying to challenge my presence. I'll also eliminate them. I am sure quite a few of them have seen that famous movie Godfather. Ishwara aham. Why? How can you do it? Are you so powerful? Powerful? What do you mean? I am next to God. I am God myself. Ekoham dvinasi. There is no second one. I am the boss. So who are you talking about? Bhogi, siddhoham, and I enjoy life. I can afford it. I'm the boss of bosses. Siddhoham, I'm very successful. Balavan, Sukhi, I'm very powerful, and therefore I'm happy as well. Look at their thought processes. Also, Devadatta Nama Maya Hataha. That guy called Devadatta, who had challenged me, had raised questions, had pointed fingers at me in a meeting, is gone. Satruhu, Atidurjayaha. He's a very powerful guy, but I terminated because I am even more powerful. Ataha idanim anayashena hanishe. And therefore, now I have already eliminated that guy who was a don. So the next guy is much weaker. So it's very easy for me. Cha hanishyami. If you look at this, it appears as if Madhusudana Saraswati is kind of looking at the military conflicts between those small, small kings and generals, isn't it? During his time, there were a lot of wars and captures and conquests in northern India in those days because the empires were expanding and they were fighting with each other. Aparan sarvan api shatrun. All of the small kings or whatever, I'll defeat them. I'll expand my empire. Na kopi matsakasad jivishyati iti apehe arthaha. So that api sabda is mentioned. Aparan api, and I also will kill others. So he's saying that apehe is what? Yeah, because I'm around, I'll not let anyone breathe a sigh of relief. I'll eliminate all these. Whosoever is going to challenge my powerful presence, I'm going to eliminate them. Chakarat na kevalam hanishyami tat tan kintu tesam daradhanadikam api grahishyami iti abhiprayah. And what these kings were doing, they were not only killing those kings, but they were capturing that woman and they were taking them to be part of their harems. So daughters or wives or whatever, you capture. I mean, that was the practice those days. And so he's saying, then I'll take their wives. And then Daradhana, then I'll take their wealth. Grahishyami iti abhiprayah. Kutastam kuta tava etadrisam samarthyam tvat tulyanam tvad adhikanam va satrunam sambhavat. But how do you have this kind of fantastic dreams? Is it not possible that people who are more powerful than you? Why do you think like that? Somebody might ask this question to these asuras. What do they say? Ityaha, Ishwaro aham. Oh my God, don't you have those kind of doubts? I'm God myself. Na kevalam manusha yena mat tulyo adhiko va kaschit syad. The question of anybody equal to me will arise if you think I'm a normal human guy. I'm not one of those. That is the idea, right? I'm different. I'm not one of those. Once I decide, I am verily God. I'm an extraordinary person. That is how he thinks. Kim ete karishanti varakaha. What these vechara, these guys, these idiots, these innocent guys, they don't know how cruel I am and what kind of harm I can cause them. Sarvata nasti matulya. Therefore, there is no one who is comparable to me. Kaschid iti anena. So by this, what is he trying to say? Iti abhiprayena ishwaratum bibrunuti. So he says that I'm verily God. I'm all powerful. Yasmad aham bhogi. And how do you explain you are God? Because look at my life. I'm always happy. I have all the luxuries in life. Sarvehi bhogi upakaranihi apetaha. And then I have all the instruments and means of having a very commodious living, a very luxurious life. I have singers for me, and there are people, I have the best drummers and guitarists and people playing violin in my court, and I have 5 dozen wives, another 5 dozen ladies to look after these wives, and all that, and a big army and a lot of horses and all sorts of things. And Sarvata Nasima. And then what do you think? I have all the upakaranas, means of happiness. Siddhoham. And I'm accomplished. In what sense? Putra Bhrityadivihi. Because I have a lot of young boys who are my sons. And then I have a lot of soldiers and a lot of servants who are ready to lay their lives for me. Sahaihi sampannaha. Swatopi balavan. And then I'm myself very powerful. Iti ojasvi sukhi sarvada niroga. I'm very healthy. I have no problem of sugar or blood pressure or anything. I'm a very healthy, happy guy with a lot of wives and children and a lot of servants and a big army, a lot of horses and wealth and all that. Okay, you have a few modern monarchies where you have kings like that. Nanu dhanena kulena va kaschita tulyah syad ityata aha. But what about maybe there are some people who are comparable with you? Then he speaks in the verse number 15 and 16. He counters this sort of a fear. He says, no, there is no one who can compare with me or compete with me. Adhyo vijanavanasmi konyosti sadruso maya yakhye dasyami modise itya jnana vimohitaha aneka chitta vibhranta mohojala samabritaha prasaktaha kama bhogeshu patanti narakesu chau. So finally, the end point of all this is they live in a hell. Now, first thing he's saying, no, there's no one comparable with me. The first sentence he says is Adhyaha, I'm very rich. Then Abhijanawan, I'm very aristocratic and I have a lot of people with me. He's comparing himself with God. So he says, I have that Zanabala. I was born in a very powerful family and my sons are all powerful and, they're very accomplished. Ask me. Ko anyo asti sadrusho mama. Who else is there? Can you tell me a name who can compare with me? Yakshe. I'll do a lot of yagas. I'll do a lot of pujas. It's like he's thinking about Ravana or Kansa, Yakshe. And then I'll have yaga and I'll please these gods and goddesses to have more power, more wealth, more women, more servants, more animals, cattle, and stuff like that. Dasyami. And then I'll do a lot of dana. It's not that I'll pass off as a guy. And don't you know that I'm a guy who's sort of loved by a lot of people? Somebody was telling this to me, or somebody was mentioning about it, that Arjuna fought with Duryodhana. But have you read anywhere in Mahabharata that Duryodhana was a very unpopular king? Was there any uprising against him? Was there any insurgency against him? We don't have any proof. Have we read about Ravana being a very atrocious or very oppressive king? No. These guys were very popular with their people. And you will always find that a lot of these demonic people have big fan following, whether they are politicians or they're dons. There are a lot of people who are ready to lay their lives. So they satisfy these guys. It's not that they are not doing anything, they are giving because they kind of weaponize these acts of giving to take control over other lives and then use these people as their weapons for expanding their empire. So it's not that they don't take care. And if you talk to their followers, they have very high opinion about them. And that is why just look at Ravana, all his children, all soldiers, they were ready to lay their lives for him. Why? They must be thinking he's God. Why do you think people were ready to do whatever Hitler said or whatever Stalin said? Because they thought he was God. That is the charismatic model of leadership that Max Weber was talking about. They absolutely have no doubt whatsoever about the person whom they think is their leader. They think he's incomparable. He's above everyone else, and therefore they blindly follow them. So Adya Abhijanavan Ashmi Ko Anyo Asti Sadrusho Maya. No one comparable with me. Jakya, I'll do these yagas, and Dasyami, and I'll do a lot of danas. Modishi, and I'll have a lot of fun. Iti agyana vimohitaha. This is how they fantasize is their good life. The only way to make whatever happiness one has sustainable is to follow the path of dharma. That having that respect and doing a bit of nishkama karma, a bit of upasana, having this dana dharma, all the good qualities, daivi sampad that we have discussed, having certain compassion for others. These qualities this fellow doesn't have. He has them, but the purpose is different. He will be very compassionate toward his servant, not because he loves the servant, but because he wants to take complete possession of the mind of that servant. And therefore he'll give. It's kind of bribe. It's kind of, he sort of brainwashes these people that I'm the best guy around and this, you should follow me. Aneka chitta vibhrantaha, and then he has a lot of thoughts. Mohajala samabritaha, and they are like a fish captured in a net. They say they have that attachment, which is like a net in which they are cut off. Prasaktaha, and then they are all the time working. Their desires are expanding. They're always busy fulfilling their desires. Prasaktaha kama bhogeshu. And what is the end of this whole game? Patanti narake asuchau. So in that, they fall into the hell, which is extremely dirty. So essentially, the inner content of their lives will be not having an inner value. Whether they will go to any hell or not, their life is very miserable because they are going away from any understanding of the self. So they are the miserly people, kripanaha, because they're miserly. Why? Because God has given them a chance to connect with what they are, but they are kind of outwardly motivated and going in an opposite direction. Like we have to go to Badrinath and you are driving towards Kumayu, that's also hills and mountains, but that's not Badrinath. It's a different direction. So it's like that. Now let's look at how he explains in the commentary. Adhya dhani, Abhijanawan, Kulina. It's like in certain parts of India, especially in Bengal, they will give those marriage, matrimonials those days in newspapers. Kulina Brahmin, they will mention that comes from a very aristocratic family. And like, for example, North Indians will also write Soryu, what is that? Soryupari Brahmins, Sakadvipa Brahmins, they mention about their own traditions in giving matrimonial advertisements. Also, the Agarwals, they will write Visha Agarwals or something, they write. Avijanavan Kulino Api Aham Eva Ashmi. I'm born in a very aristocratic family. Ataha ko anya asti sadrusho maya na kopi ityartha. There is no one who is comparable with me. Yagena danena vakaschit tulya. There is no one who can compare with me when it comes to doing those ostentatious religious rituals. They do big, big yagas. You'll find a lot of these business people in South India, also in North India, they sponsor a lot of religious activities, not because they're very compassionate or they're full of piety or anything, partly also to show off. And they organize these things. Maybe some of them have genuine interest and eagerness and kind of aspiration to know about, and but largely it's out of fear and also takes spiritual protection for more money and blah 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 and all that. This is not to sort of, you know, I'm not trying to sort of disrespect what they're doing, because maybe they're doing a lot of great things, but a lot of these people, if you look at their lives, it's not driven by any devotion or anything. They just manage to spend. A lot of billionaires also make big contributions for this sort of things because they want to say that we also do it. If they could actually do it with the right understanding, they will enormously benefit. There's no doubt about it. The Shastra is very clear about it. But without the right mindset, even great things benefit us in a very limited way. It's like you go to a temple, but you look at the deity, but you don't have any devotion. So you have gone to a temple and you have been there for 2 hours and you come back, but it becomes an excursion, it becomes a picnic. It doesn't become a temple visit. So it's very important to sort of carry that subjectivity, that what they call, you have to set the inner space of your consciousness right, so that whatever we do externally gives us maximum benefit. Yagena danena va kaschit tulya, nobody is comparable. Syad ityatah aha yakhe yagena api. So anya and yagena api anyan abhibhavishyami, and then I will defeat others. I'll also please the gods and I'll get a lot of powers and I can also defeat others. Dasyami dhanam stavakebhyo. Whom should I give money? All my flatterers. Those are my stavakas who do my stuti. Stavaka is a guy who is singing in praise of you. So stavakebhyo natadibhyasya, and I'll also sort of give a lot of money to nata. Here is the courtiers. It could be women, the dance users, or the singers, and all that. That it could be also public woman, whosoever you give them money. And nata here is those court artists. Tatasya modishe, then I'll have a lot of fun. Modam harsham lapshe, I'll have harsalava, I'll celebrate my life. Nartakyadivi, then I'll call a lot of dancer girls who will dance to different musical numbers of my taste. And then saha ityevam agyanena, with all these things, nartakyadivi saha. So I'll have a few models who will come and dance for me. I have a birthday party where I throw some money and I'll call a few TV artists or some models and stuff like that, and I'll do a bit of recording and post them on Instagram. I can do all that. I have a lot of money. So all vivekena bimohitaha. So they are kind of visheshana mohitaha, thoroughly deluded. Vividha moham, not one, but hundreds of delusions. They are captured by these delusions. Brahma paramparam prapitaha. So each one delusion is replaced by another. Their whole life is kind of a series of delusions, series of cravings, and series of false achievements. You achieve what? Because they're not even the right consciousness there to help us have a sense of inner peace, but they are not interested in all that. And then उक्त प्रकारेहि अनेकैहि चित्तैहि तत्तद दुष्ट संकल्पैहि विविधाः विविधं भ्रान्ताः. Why they are vividha? He's saying that prasaktaha, and there, aneka bit, aneka chit vibhrantaha. And why they are having an aneka chitta vibhranta? Because ukta prakarehi anekehi chittehi, and they have several such thoughts, several such mental obsessions, and by these mental obsessions, tatta dushta sankalpehi, each such mental process is having one dirty end in mind. You want to fulfill that. And then there are multiples of them. So bhrantaha. And what is the real goal of life? They are not interested. They're having craving for all this. Yata mohajalam samabrataha. And then with their own chesta and everything, they are kind of this mohajala, the net of delusion, they capture in it. Moha hitahita vastu viveka asamarthyam. What is moha? Beautifully mentioned. It's actually viveka abhava, complete absence of discretion, ability to analyze the good, differentiate the good from the bad. Tadeva jalam, that itself is that prison or cage or net or whatever. And in that net, avarnatmakatvena bandhahetutvat, and that particular net, that jala, that moha, that delusion is covering up your ability to have the necessary insight into what is right for you. It's like the parents are telling the son, better don't waste your time. Why don't you focus on your studies and stuff like that? But he's having a good time with his peers and friends. He says, Papa, you are old generation. Don't even understand what I'm doing. And then he indulges in a lot of things. And parents say, these friends are not going to help you. Where are you going? Why are you doing all this? He doesn't care for the parents. He thinks his parents are idiots, old generation. There's a generation gap. And then he either makes a loss or he has some heartbreak or some problem happens and then returns to parents. And what do? The grown up boy. And he says, we were telling you, you never listened. And he gets angry and he says, okay, give me more money. Whatever, this can happen. This happens in many families. Vastu viveka samarthyam tadeva jalam avaranatmakatvena bandhahitutva. That itself is the cause of bondage. Tena samyak abritaha. Their consciousness is fully covered, wrapped up with that particular thing, that blinding influence of the delusional thoughts. Sarvato veshtita. They're surrounded by those thoughts. And then he's giving a metaphorical resemblance to one thing where he's comparing Matsya iva sutra mayeva jalena. Sutra mayeva. No, it should be sutra mayeva jalena. So it's like that jala, that net. It's made of a lot of threads, isn't it? So the matsyaha is like fish, and they are swimming nicely. And suddenly they fall to the trap. And there's a whole net. And it's open one side till he pulls it. So they go there. They think it's a lovely place to go. And they go there and he pulls the net, they are captured. They can't go anywhere. Masyaiva sutra mayena jarena paravasikritaha ityarthaha. And actually, what does it mean to be in a net of desires? Essentially saying that once we have nurtured a few desires, the desire becomes our boss. It decides what we're going to do tonight or tomorrow. So it decides where we are going to waste our money, where we are going to invest our time, who are the people we are going to meet. That desire decides. Look, how terrible is that? A desire is supposed to be something which we have because we think, let me have this, we want to fulfill it. Like, for example, you want to have a cup of tea, you want to read a book of poems, you want to go and watch a rainbow. And once I met some young men in Bombay and I was very interested. These guys they're stargazers. So I said, where are you going? He said, no, we're going to Lonavala because the city, because of clouds and because of dust and all, you can't watch things. And why are you going there? Because see, there's this This lunar eclipse scheduled to happen on a particular night. So there are 4, 5, 6 guys with their binoculars and their big ones, and they are going. And so there'll be one guy with a very costly binocular, and I think maybe he has a car, and other people. So they're going to go and guest house with somebody's permission, some office room, and they'll be on the roof and watching the lunar eclipse. And they're, they're going to write something about it. It's like a project for them. Very interesting, isn't it? That sort of a thing you want to do deliberately, like you want to go and sit at a riverside, you want to go on a holiday or go see a wildlife sanctuary. These are all fine. This to enrich the experience of life. But when that particular desire begins to decide things for us, when a certain desire gets the power which is given by us, because desire is jada, it doesn't have chaitanya. We have enabled that desire to behave like our boss, in the sense we have twisted our mind, we are hijacked by a certain desire, and we behave as if we are our own enemies. We work against our interest. That is what they say in this called hijacked minds, that you absolutely think in an opposite direction and you think that's all perfect till you come out of that whole delusion, and you sort of have a moment of waking up, and then that awakening takes place. Then you have lost everything. You have lost years, you have lost time, you have lost attention. Most important of it is that you think, why the hell did I make it a part of my life? You want to delete that story, that phase of your life, because you had sort of chased a certain dream, whatever that be. It could be obsession with cricket, anything. But then that sort of becomes semi-autonomous and starts ruling over us. That's why he mentions Paravasikrita ityarthaha, that particular, that mohajala abritaha. Ata eva swanishta sadhaneshu api. And so anishta sadhana, what is going to harm ourselves, api kama bhogeshu prasaktaha. So they don't mind trying to fulfill a few desires they know is going to harm them. It's like young boys risking their lives to take a selfie on a cliff, and many of them are falling into rivers and they die. Nobody cares for them. Sarvatha tad ekaparaha, and then they are all the time chasing that. Pratikshanam upajiyamana kalmasaha, and all their papas, this negative energy in them is expanding, because they are not even taking a pause. They are not even sitting back to look at what they're doing. So they continuously expand the negative energy, the darknesses in their life, and patanti. And as a result, what? They fall into the hell. That Vaitarnado Asucho Venamutra Slesmadi Purne. So that, this is a metaphoric difference. He's saying that they fall into that river where you have what is flowing there, stool and urine and this mucus and all sorts of things. Okay, that is what is sort of flowing in that river, etc. and stuff like that. They fall into it. It's essentially saying that when we exert too much of our energies in dissipative activities and stuff like that, there will be a time when the body, the consciousness cannot take it anymore. And then what happens to these people? They could have a nervous breakdown, they could have depression, they could have anxiety. Suddenly, these things will start appearing in their real lives. They will lose control over their lives, and that is the hell. I actually am not very serious about what it says. The theological aspect doesn't interest me, but let's look at it, because we are living in modern times and we need to sort of interpret Bhagavad Gita in our own context to make sense of it. And this is not sustainable. This raga dveshatmaka life is not sustainable, and therefore the more and more we change it, is quite possible that we reach a point where we are no more what we are. We have done maximum damage to our own aspirations, our own whatever goals we had set for ourselves when we began to sort of, as adults, we try to move forward, searching for success and happiness, but we end up with something which is unsustainable, which is full of darkness and bitterness and stuff like that. Then what happens? Nanu tesam api kesanchid vaidike karmani yagadhanadau prabriti darsanad ayuktam narake padanamiti na ityaha. But somebody might say, but why should they suffer? But do you know this guy was so kind? A lot of people come and tell you those stories. Yeah, he's a don, he's a very good guy, but he had helped me when my father wasn't very well. And so they do few jagadan and other things they do. And you yourself saying he's saying that I will do this yaga and dana. So they have done some dharmas. So how can they go to hell? How can they not have some benefit because of whatever charitable work they have done, even though they have done it out of ego? Then he's explaining in the next verse, that is verse number 17. Atma sambhavitaha stabdaha dhanamana madanvitaha yajanti nama jagyaiste dambhena vidhipurvakam. Yeah, they do a jnana jagya and other things, yes. Avidhipurvakam. They don't know how to do it. It's like, it's quite possible that somebody is giving something to a person, but without love, with hatred. And you're causing more psychological damage to the person. It's like somebody says, "Sir, I'm very hungry," and you're throwing $100 dollar bill, you're throwing a $10 bill at that poor guy. You're giving $10, but then you're throwing it at him. You're giving a 100 rupee note, you're throwing it at that person. Somebody is in need and you misbehave and you give it. Or you are doing some puja and all, you don't care for time or the rituals and this and that. You say, no, no, you do it. Okay, I don't have much time. Can you do it in 10 minutes? Okay, do fast forward. All nonsense. They have no respect. So they will not get the benefits. Yajante nama jagyaiste dambhena, because of their confidence, because of their arrogance, they do it. And without following any rules and regulations, without the necessary accompanying mindset, they do it. Atma samvidaha sabdaha. And then, they're kind of obsessed with themselves. And sabdaha dhanamana madanvitaha. And they're driven by what? Dharmartha? No. They're driven by what? Dhana. That I'm very rich, let me do it. Let me give it. I'm so rich, I don't care for it. And mana. They have that, ego, that egotism, that I'm a very respectful person, everybody respects me, that sort of thing. False pride and a mother, obsession with their own thing, isn't it? That moha. So, because of all these, who do not have the necessary piety or humility, and because they can afford it, they are doing it, and they consider they are above everyone else. So, people who are taking it, they are doing it agatya because they have no option. Somebody is poor. So, if you give something, he will take it, of course. But I don't know how much he will bless you if you don't give it out of some semblance of love or some humility. It's very important as to how we sort of carry ourselves, and the details of it, we'll have a look at it tomorrow because it's slightly longish, and then we'll go forward. There are a few more verses, and that is how I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask. I'm going to put an end to the YouTube. Thanks for watching.